Hello tonight. You travel to a place where silence arrives long before history learns to write its own name. You follow the first pale light spreading across a vast plain where two mighty rivers slowly approach each other. Long before cities, kingdoms, or monuments exist, the land is already preparing a story so patient that even time itself seems content to pause and listen. The first glow of dawn stretches gently across the meeting place of the Mississippi and the Missouri rivers. Nothing rushes. The sky changes color so gradually that it almost feels shy, exchanging deep blue for soft silver before welcoming gentle shades of gold. You stand quietly within this peaceful moment, while the world seems to yawn awake more slowly than someone searching for the snooze button on a Monday morning. Before a single village appears, before any road divides the landscape, the rivers continue their endless conversation. They twist through broad floodplains with quiet confidence, carrying distant mountain minerals toward lands they have shaped for thousands of years. Every ripple catches the growing light, as though countless tiny mirrors have gathered simply to greet another peaceful sunrise together. So before you get completely comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel, but only if you truly enjoy what we're creating here. As you settle into tonight's journey, I would love to know where you are listening from and what your local time is. Somewhere across the world, another evening, another sunrise, or perhaps another quiet afternoon is unfolding. And it is comforting to imagine so many listeners sharing this peaceful story together. Almost like neighbors gathering around the same warm fire despite living oceans apart. Now, slowly dim the lights. Perhaps turn on a fan, letting the steady hum of the air fill the room. And in that gentle rhythm, we quietly step into tonight's journey together. Morning mist drifts gently above the wetlands, like delicate white silk carefully spread across sleeping water. Marsh grasses sway only slightly as a cool breeze slips quietly between their stems. Water birds call softly across hidden pools, their voices echoing through the peaceful stillness without breaking its calm. Even the mosquitoes seem surprisingly well-mannered this morning, perhaps agreeing that every visitor deserves at least one uninterrupted sunrise before breakfast. Beneath your feet rests layer upon layer of rich alluvial soil, quietly gathered over countless generations of seasonal floods. Each flood leaves behind another delicate gift of silt, building the land grain by grain with remarkable patience. Modern geological research shows that these recurring floods gradually created a remarkably fertile landscape, forming one of the richest agricultural regions throughout North America. Ancient forests surround the open floodplain with steady confidence. Towering oaks, hickories, walnuts, and sycamores spread their branches beneath skies that have watched thousands of seasons quietly come and go since the Ice Age finally loosened its frozen grip upon this continent. Every tree seems less like an individual plant and more like an old librarian carefully guarding shelves filled with silent memories. The last great glaciers have long since retreated toward the north, yet their distant influence remains everywhere you look. As enormous sheets of ice melted thousands of years earlier, they redirected rivers, carved valleys, and helped to shape the landscape before you. Even now, every gentle bend of the water carries the quiet signature of those ancient frozen giants whose work ended long before human footsteps arrived. The morning grows brighter without ever becoming loud. Sunlight slowly reaches across the floodplain, warming the damp earth one careful inch at a time. Tiny droplets of dew cling to blades of grass like scattered pearls, sparkling for only a brief moment before quietly disappearing. They seem to understand that even the smallest performance deserves a graceful exit, much like someone leaving a party before the dishes appear. Dragonflies glide above shallow pools with effortless precision, while turtles rest upon half-submerged logs that have floated here for longer than anyone could remember. Fish stir beneath the clear water, creating circles that expand gently across the surface before fading away. Every creature follows a rhythm older than memory itself, asking for nothing more than another peaceful day beneath the open sky. The rivers continue their timeless work without asking for praise or recognition. With every changing season, rising waters gently overflow their banks, leaving behind fresh layers of rich, fertile sediment before quietly returning to their channels. Geologists explain that this repeating cycle has shaped the landscape for thousands of years, patiently renewing the floodplain and creating one of North America's most productive soils without placing a single stone by human hands. You gradually realize that nothing in this landscape exists entirely on its own. Flowing water sustains the forests, while the forests provide shelter for birds, deer, insects, and countless other living creatures. Fallen leaves slowly become part of the earth, enriching the soil that supports new life every spring. Everything belongs to the same quiet rhythm, where each season gently answers the last with patience, harmony, and generosity, as naturally as breathing. Clouds drift overhead with such gentle patience that they almost seem unable to decide which direction deserves their attention first. Their soft shadows glide across broad meadows, winding rivers, and quiet wetlands, changing every shade of green with delicate care. If clouds ever held committee meetings, you imagine they would spend centuries approving today's travel plans, and the endlessly patient rivers would simply keep flowing without complaint. As the afternoon still lingers comfortably beyond the horizon, you sense that this landscape has been waiting for company without ever feeling empty or forgotten. The land asks for no applause and seeks no admiration from passing eyes. It simply remains itself, allowing sunlight, wind, rain, rivers, and time to shape its quiet character across thousands of peaceful years that drift by almost unnoticed, leaving only gentle traces behind. Then, almost too gently to disturb the silence, something changes. Near the edge of the damp riverbank, faint impressions appear upon the soft earth. They are neither hurried nor uncertain. A small group of indigenous people walks carefully across the fertile ground, leaving behind the first delicate footprints in your journey. The rivers continue flowing beside them, as though quietly welcoming companions they have patiently awaited for countless generations. Those first footprints remain visible only briefly before wind, water, and passing seasons gently begin to erase their shape. Yet the meaning behind those quiet marks lasts much longer than the impressions themselves. They suggest that this peaceful valley is slowly welcoming human presence, as generations of people begin to connect their lives with the ancient rhythm of earth, forests, rivers, and the endless movement of nature. You continue following the gentle movement of the rivers as they travel through the ancient valley, carrying stories older than any human memory. The Mississippi and Missouri flow beside forests, wetlands, and open fields, creating a landscape where countless forms of life quietly depend on one another. Long before Cahokia rises, this place already feels like a living world carefully prepared by nature. The rivers move with a steady rhythm, neither hurried nor silent. Their waters provide fish, plants, animals, and fresh resources for the earliest communities who settled here thousands of years ago. Each bend of the river offers another small discovery, another reminder that human life has always been connected to the patient movements of water across the earth. The climate in this valley follows a gentle cycle of changing seasons. Warm summers bring long days beneath wide skies, while cooler months invite quiet preparation for the future. You imagine ancient families watching the same sunsets, feeling the same breezes, and noticing the same natural signs that still appear today when the seasons slowly turn. Around you, forests of oak trees stretch across the landscape with quiet strength. Their branches create shelter for birds and animals, while their roots hold the soil firmly beneath the ground. The oak forests are not simply groups of trees, but ancient communities of their own, standing together through storms, floods, and countless years of changing weather. During spring and autumn, migratory birds travel through this region along ancient routes shaped by instinct, changing seasons and countless generations of flight. Their calls fill the cool morning air as they pause beside rivers and quiet lakes before continuing their remarkable journeys. The sky becomes a living pathway, and the birds seem to recognize this fertile valley as a peaceful resting place between distant destinations, returning year after year without hesitation. As night settles across the valley, the rivers transform beneath the gentle glow of the moon. Their calm surfaces reflect the pale light above, creating a silent mirror that stretches deep into the darkness. Watching the slow movement of the water, you can almost understand why the first people found comfort here. Everything feels unhurried, and even the moon seems to linger a little longer, quietly admiring the timeless beauty below. The wetlands surrounding the rivers create rich habitats filled with life. Frogs call from hidden areas, insects move through the grasses, and small animals search for food among plants and fallen leaves. Every creature has a role within this natural balance, almost like a very organized neighborhood where nobody needs to send reminders about taking care of their responsibilities. Long before the great city of Cahokia appears, communities already understand the value of this land. They learn where fish gather, where plants grow best, and how the rivers change through the year. Their knowledge develops through careful observation, passed from one generation to another like a quiet conversation between grandparents and children. Archaeologists have discovered evidence that woodland peoples lived throughout this region for many centuries before the rise of the Mississippian civilization. They created stone tools, pottery, and ceremonial spaces while adapting to the steady rhythms of rivers, forests, and changing seasons. Their enduring presence reminds us that the story of this valley began long before monumental earthworks appeared across the horizon, quietly laying the foundations for the cultures that would later flourish here. The woodland communities left behind subtle traces of their daily lives beneath layers of earth. Fragments of pottery, carefully shaped stone tools, ancient hearths, and modest earthworks reveal how thoughtfully they interacted with the surrounding landscape. These discoveries suggest that people were not merely passing through this valley, but building lasting relationships with rivers, forests, wildlife, and seasonal cycles that continue to shape life across many generations. You can imagine families gathering beside the water during peaceful evenings, sharing food, stories, songs, and observations about the changing world around them. The rivers become more than simple sources of survival. They grow into familiar companions woven into everyday life. Flowing quietly through countless generations, they witness celebrations, farewells, and ordinary moments alike, preserving memories that gradually fade into the endless current of time while the valley patiently remembers them all. The animals moving through the forests also shape the rhythm of these early communities. Deer travel through wooded paths, fish move through clear waters, and birds return each year to the same places. Nature provides signs that help people understand when to travel, gather resources, or prepare for colder days. The valley speaks softly, and people learn how to listen. As centuries pass, the relationship between humans and the environment becomes deeper. People discover better ways to cultivate plants, manage resources, and create stable settlements. They do not separate themselves from nature, but become part of its ongoing pattern. The river valley becomes a place where knowledge grows slowly, like a tree adding another ring each year. The lakes and quiet streams nearby create additional spaces where life flourishes. Reflections of clouds and stars appear on the water, making each evening feel almost timeless. You can picture someone sitting beside the shore thousands of years ago, watching the same peaceful scene and wondering about the same endless sky above. The changing seasons bring different sounds, colors, and gentle rhythms to the valley, quietly transforming the landscape throughout the passing year. Spring awakens fresh green growth and blooming wildflowers. Summer fills the forest with warmth, insects, and birdsong. Autumn spreads brilliant blankets of fallen leaves across the ground. And winter settles beneath cold, silent skies. Each season leaves a quiet mark upon the valley, gradually shaping the land and preparing it for civilizations that would flourish centuries later. The rivers seem to remember everything, because they have always carried far more than water alone. They transport minerals from distant mountains, nourish forests and wetlands, support countless species of plants and animals, and witness the gradual arrival of human communities along their banks. Every gentle current carries echoes of the past, flowing steadily forward while preserving memories from a world before written history. Over many generations, the valley continues becoming a place of possibility. The fertile ground, abundant resources, and connected waterways create conditions where a larger society may eventually emerge. Nature does not announce this future loudly. Instead, it prepares the foundation patiently, like an artist arranging materials before beginning a masterpiece. And as the rivers continue their endless journey beneath the stars, you sense that the land has been waiting for something remarkable. The forests, waters, animals, and early communities have all played their parts in a story still unfolding. Slowly, quietly, this ancient valley moves closer toward the moment when a unique city will rise beside the rivers. You now move forward through time, arriving at a morning when the valley begins to change in a gentle and almost unnoticed way. Around the year 1050 CE, Cahokia slowly begins to grow beside the rivers. It does not appear like a sudden transformation, but more like sunlight gradually filling a quiet room after a long night. The first signs of change appear through the daily movements of people. More homes begin to gather across the landscape. Paths become more familiar, and open spaces slowly take shape between wooden structures. The rhythm of life remains peaceful, with families working, children learning, and communities growing together beneath the same white skies. You walk through the settlement and notice houses built from wood, with walls carefully shaped and roofs covered with natural materials. Smoke rises gently from cooking fires as meals are prepared throughout the day. The fragrance of native plants, burning firewood, roasted corn, and damp earth mingles in the air, creating a peaceful, welcoming, and familiar atmosphere throughout. The homes of Cahokia are never isolated from one another, but form neighborhoods within a carefully organized community. Wooden houses stand beside fenced family compounds, connected by well-used pathways leading to shared gathering places and public spaces. Neighbors exchange knowledge, tools, food, and daily assistance, strengthening social bonds. Every structure reflects thoughtful planning, revealing that this remarkable city grows steadily through cooperation, tradition, and collective effort rather than hurried expansion alone. In the broad central district, spacious plazas become the living heart of Cahokia. These carefully maintained open areas provide room for ceremonies, seasonal celebrations, public meetings, trading activities, athletic games, and daily conversations. You can picture families walking across the plazas beneath the warm sun, while children laugh and play nearby. Even surrounded by impressive monuments, these spaces remain filled with ordinary moments that give the thriving city warmth, familiarity, and life. The sounds of Cahokia create a calm but constant rhythm that fills every corner of the settlement. Footsteps cross packed earth paths, voices drift gently through the breeze, and skilled craftspeople shape wood, stone, shell, and clay with practiced hands. Somewhere nearby, someone probably drops a woven basket or stumbles over a tree root, reminding you that even one of North America's greatest ancient cities is wonderfully, reassuringly, and unmistakably human. Agriculture supports this growing community as people cultivate crops and manage the fertile lands around the rivers. Corn becomes especially important, helping provide a reliable food source for larger populations. The relationship between the people and the landscape becomes stronger as farming techniques improve and the surrounding environment continues, offering its resources. Archaeological evidence shows that Cahokia grows into one of the most remarkable urban centers in ancient North America. Researchers estimate that between 15,000 and 20,000 people may have lived there during its peak around the 11th and 12th centuries. At that time, Cahokia was likely the largest city north of Mexico, surpassing the population of many contemporary European cities and demonstrating an extraordinary level of social organization and planning. The rapid growth of Cahokia reflects a highly organized society, supported by effective leadership, extensive trade networks, specialized crafts, and deeply rooted cultural traditions. People travel from surrounding regions to settle or trade, bringing different languages, skills, artistic styles, and religious beliefs. Together, they create a vibrant, multicultural community where knowledge, resources, and ceremonial practices are exchanged, making the city an influential center throughout the Mississippi River Valley. The expanding city continues to develop slowly, with each generation adding something new to the landscape. More homes appear, more pathways connect different areas, and the central spaces become increasingly important. Cahokia does not grow through noise or sudden movement, but through thousands of small actions repeated every day by ordinary people creating an extraordinary place. You notice how daily life remains connected to simple moments. Families prepare food, children explore their surroundings, and craftspeople shape tools, ornaments, and objects used for both practical and ceremonial purposes. The city is not only a collection of buildings, but a living community where countless personal stories unfold quietly beneath the open sky. The rivers continue flowing nearby, providing transportation routes that connect Cahokia with distant communities. Canoes move along the water carrying goods, materials, and messages between different places. The waterways become natural roads, allowing ideas and traditions to travel farther than footsteps alone could ever reach across the vast landscape. Trade brings a remarkable variety of objects into Cahokia, revealing that the city is connected to a much wider world beyond the surrounding valley. Shells from distant coastlines, carefully selected stones, copper, and other valuable materials appear among archaeological discoveries. These objects show that Cahokia is not an isolated settlement, but a thriving center where people, goods, ideas, and cultural traditions meet through extensive exchange networks. The city's organization becomes increasingly visible through its carefully arranged spaces and balanced design. Large public plazas, residential neighborhoods, ceremonial areas, workshops, and open gathering places follow patterns that suggest thoughtful planning rather than random growth. The people who build Cahokia understand that the arrangement of space can strengthen community life, encouraging cooperation, shared ceremonies, daily interaction, and a strong sense of belonging among thousands of residents. As the sun slowly moves across the sky, Cahokia changes from the lively energy of morning into the peaceful calm of evening. Smoke from cooking fires rises gently above the rooftops, blending with the warm colors of the fading light. Daily sounds gradually soften as families return home. Children grow quieter and workers rest. Yet the city's living spirit continues like a steady heartbeat, carrying peacefully through the night. From a nearby rise overlooking the landscape, you begin to understand the astonishing scale of what has emerged within this fertile valley. The settlement stretches outward in every direction, reflecting generations of cooperation, planning, and careful adaptation to the environment. What once began as scattered communities living beside rivers has gradually become a remarkable urban center, unlike anything else known in this region of North America. Standing on higher ground, you no longer see Cahokia as only a collection of buildings, but as a living pattern woven across the landscape. Homes, pathways, plazas, temples, gardens, and cultivated fields move together in a steady rhythm. People walk, work, gather, celebrate, and rest within this immense community, creating a peaceful flow of daily life that feels almost like the quiet breathing of the earth itself. As evening arrives, the first stars appear above Cahokia, and the city settles into another peaceful night. From the top of a nearby mound, you look across the valley and see the lights of small fires scattered below. The great settlement does not seem overwhelming, but balanced and calm, like a quiet breath moving steadily through history. You now walk slowly through the quiet landscape of Cahokia, where enormous earth mounds rise gently from the ground beneath the open sky. The afternoon light spreads softly across the valley, turning the grass into waves of golden color. The air feels calm, and every step brings you closer to the remarkable structures created by generations of human hands. The mounds do not appear as sudden monuments imposed upon the landscape. Instead, they resemble gentle natural hills that seem to have always belonged to this broad valley. Yet as you walk closer, their hidden story slowly becomes clear. Every carefully shaped slope reflects thousands of deliberate choices, created by generations of people carrying soil with woven baskets. Wooden tools, steady hands, remarkable patience, and shared determination over many decades together. Among these remarkable earthworks, Monk's Mound rises above all the others with quiet confidence and extraordinary scale. Towering more than 100 feet above the surrounding plain, it offers sweeping views across the ancient city and fertile floodplain beyond. The mound does not depend on elaborate decoration or brilliant colors to inspire admiration. Instead, its calm presence speaks through sheer size, enduring strength, and timeless permanence across every passing season. You imagine the people of Cahokia carrying heavy baskets filled with earth, following familiar paths toward the steadily growing mound each day. Every basket contains only a small amount of soil, yet millions of separate journeys gradually reshape the landscape into something extraordinary. The work demands patience, careful organization, cooperation, and unwavering purpose, reminding everyone that the completed monument belongs not to individuals, but to the entire community together. The construction of Monk's Mound takes place across many years and generations. Archaeologists have discovered evidence showing that layers of different soils were carefully arranged to create stability. People did not simply pile dirt randomly. They shaped the earth with knowledge and attention, building something that could survive far beyond their own lifetimes. The scene feels surprisingly quiet as you picture this ancient effort. There are no machines, no engines, and no modern tools creating noise across the valley. Instead, there are footsteps, conversations, and the gentle movement of baskets being carried. Perhaps someone occasionally complains about a heavy load, because even ancient workers probably wished for a little easier transportation. The builders create lasting symbols beyond simple earthworks. They establish gathering places where communities meet, celebrate ceremonies, honor traditions, and strengthen shared beliefs across generations. Each mound becomes an enduring symbol of Cahokia's identity, reminding everyone that remarkable achievements are possible when thousands of individuals contribute their patience, labor, knowledge, and determination toward a common purpose over many years. As you slowly walk around the broad base of Monk's Mound, the surrounding landscape changes your sense of its enormous scale. Gentle slopes extend naturally into wide open fields, making the earthwork appear even more commanding against the horizon. Rather than overwhelming nature, the mound seems to belong within it, becoming a peaceful meeting place where human imagination, careful craftsmanship, and the timeless beauty of the natural world exist together. Archaeological studies reveal that Monk's Mound remains the largest prehistoric earthen structure in North America. Its scale surpasses many ancient earthworks found elsewhere on the continent. This achievement shows the remarkable abilities of Cahokia's people, who shaped the land without the materials and technology that later civilizations would rely upon. The afternoon continues to move slowly as you look across the mound and imagine the countless lives connected to this place. Families, builders, farmers, and visitors all pass through the area over many generations. The mound watches over their activities quietly, receiving every sound and movement like an old storyteller who never interrupts. From higher ground, the view of Cahokia becomes easier to understand. The plazas, homes, pathways, and fields spread across the valley in a carefully arranged pattern. The mounds are not separate from the city. They are woven into its daily life. They help shape the way people gather, travel, and experience their surroundings. You can almost hear the distant voices of people who lived here centuries ago. Someone may be preparing food nearby, another person may be repairing a tool, and children may be playing around open spaces beneath the same sunlight. The greatness of Cahokia comes not only from its monuments, but also from the ordinary moments that fill those spaces. The earth beneath your feet holds countless layers of memory accumulated over generations of careful work. Every section of soil represents the effort of people who carried baskets, shaped terraces, planned structures, and cooperated with remarkable patience. Rather than ink upon paper, the mound becomes a living record written in earth itself, preserving the decisions, labor, and shared determination of those who slowly transformed the landscape through peaceful persistence together. The builders of Cahokia embrace a different understanding of time than many societies today. They create monuments that never require hurried completion because they trust future generations to continue the work. Year after year, the mound grows through thousands of small contributions, much like a forest gradually spreading or a riverbank slowly taking shape, becoming greater through patience, cooperation, and steady dedication across many peaceful decades. As evening slowly approaches, the sky above the valley begins changing into gentle shades of gold, orange, and deep violet. The bright afternoon light gradually softens while the broad surface of Monk's Mound glows beneath the setting sun. Tall grasses sway quietly with the evening breeze, producing a gentle whisper that blends naturally with the distant calls of birds returning peacefully to their nests before darkness settles across the landscape. You stand beside Monk's Mound and feel how deeply this remarkable earthwork is connected to the passage of time itself. It has silently witnessed the rise of a great city, the footsteps of countless generations, and the endless cycle of changing seasons throughout the valley. Remaining calm and unwavering through every century, the mound preserves stories that extend far beyond individual lives, quietly linking countless generations across time. The final light of day gently reaches the highest point of Monk's Mound before disappearing beyond the distant horizon. Its long shadow slowly stretches across fields, plazas, homes, and ancient pathways, embracing the landscape with quiet dignity. Watching the shadow lengthen, you sense that time itself is reaching across centuries, connecting the people of ancient Cahokia with everyone who pauses to remember their extraordinary achievements today. As darkness gently settles over the valley, the mound remains beneath the quiet sky. The people who created it have become part of history, yet their work continues to speak through the earth. The rivers flow nearby, the winds pass softly, and Monk's Mound stands peacefully, carrying the memory of a civilization that once breathed here. You continue watching the Valley of Cahokia as the years slowly move forward. The landscape still appears peaceful, with rivers flowing gently and forests standing quietly beneath the sky. Yet, almost unnoticed at first, the patterns of nature begin to shift. The seasons remain familiar, but their rhythm starts changing in small and subtle ways. The mornings still arrive with soft light, and the rivers still carry reflections of clouds across their surfaces. However, people begin noticing small differences in the world around them. Some years feel warmer, some rains arrive later, and some harvests require more attention than before. The changes are not sudden, but they gradually become part of daily awareness. The climate of the region has always moved through natural cycles, but ancient communities depended deeply on these changing patterns for survival. Farming required careful knowledge of rainfall, soil quality, river conditions, and seasonal timing. When these elements began shifting, people needed to observe the environment closely and adjust their methods. Life in Cahokia remained stable, yet adaptation became an increasingly important skill. Archaeological and environmental research suggests that periods of drought may have influenced the region during Cahokia's later centuries. Scientists study tree rings, soil layers, plant remains, and other evidence to understand ancient climate conditions. These records reveal that nature was sometimes unpredictable, and communities occasionally experienced difficult years when rainfall decreased and reliable water sources became much harder to maintain. Floods continued shaping the landscape, just as they had for thousands of years before Cahokia emerged. The Mississippi River rose and fell according to its ancient rhythms, bringing both difficulties and opportunities. Floodwaters could damage fields, homes, and pathways, but they also renewed the land by depositing fresh sediment. These natural processes constantly reshaped the valley where people lived and adapted. You imagine farmers standing near their fields, carefully watching the sky, the river, and the changing signs of nature around them. They understand that the land provides many valuable gifts, but it also requires patience, attention, and respect. Even a small shift in weather can influence crops, food supplies, and the rhythm of community life. Nature becomes a partner that must be observed and understood through experience. The people of Cahokia respond to changing conditions by adapting rather than simply waiting for the environment to return. They expand agricultural areas, explore additional food sources, and adjust the ways they use surrounding resources. Their survival depends on flexibility, cooperation, and knowledge passed carefully between generations. Through shared experiences and daily practices, they learn how to maintain balance within the valley. Fields become part of a larger strategy that includes gathering wild plants, hunting animals, fishing rivers, and managing natural resources wisely. This variety helps communities remain stable when one source becomes less dependable during difficult periods. The people do not rely on only one answer, but instead create a balance between many different possibilities offered by the valley's rich and changing landscape. Even during these environmental changes, everyday life continues with familiar and meaningful moments. Children still play near homes, families still prepare meals, and craftspeople continue creating useful objects for daily needs. The world around Cahokia changes slowly, but it does not feel like a sudden interruption. Instead, it feels like a quiet conversation between people and the environment they depend upon. The changing seasons encourage the people of Cahokia to become even more observant of their surroundings. They notice where plants grow best, where animals gather, and how rivers move throughout the year. This knowledge becomes a quiet form of wisdom, created from countless observations rather than written instructions. Their understanding of nature helps them adapt, while maintaining a strong connection with the valley. You can imagine elders sharing their experiences with younger generations beneath the shade of trees. They explain when certain plants appear, how weather patterns behave, and how the land responds after heavy rains or long dry periods. These conversations preserve essential knowledge and traditions, allowing communities to adjust successfully while maintaining their connection with the valley and its natural cycles. The forests surrounding Cahokia continue providing resources even as agricultural conditions change. Oak trees offer acorns, animals move through familiar paths, and wetlands remain filled with useful plants and creatures. The landscape does not disappear or become empty. Instead, it becomes a place where people search for new ways to live alongside changing conditions. The Mississippi River remains the great presence of the region, moving steadily through every season with quiet strength. It carries water, rich sediment, and memories from distant places while continuing its ancient journey across the landscape. The river does not change its purpose because of human worries or temporary events. Instead, it simply flows forward, reminding every generation that nature follows rhythms far greater than any individual life or civilization. Scientists studying the past continue discovering clues about the environmental changes that shaped Cahokia's history over time. Layers of soil, ancient pollen, animal remains, and other evidence help researchers understand how climate conditions influence the people who lived there. These findings do not reveal one single cause or dramatic moment, but instead show a long relationship between human society, natural forces, resources, and the constantly changing world around them. The people of Cahokia demonstrate resilience through their ability to adapt to changing conditions around them. They do not immediately abandon their traditions, nor do they ignore the signals provided by nature. Instead, they gradually adjust their daily routines and find new balances between farming, gathering, hunting, trade, and community activities. Their choices show patience, flexibility, and a deep understanding of the environment throughout many generations. The valley remains beautiful even during uncertain periods of environmental change and challenge. Sunlight continues to cross the open fields, birds return with the changing seasons, and forests continue moving gently beneath the wind. The transformations happening around Cahokia become part of a much larger natural story, where every landscape experiences moments of growth, struggle, adaptation, and renewal through the endless cycles of the earth itself. As another evening arrives, you look across the river and watch the Mississippi continue its quiet movement through the valley. The water reflects the fading light above while carrying traces of countless seasons that came before. The river has witnessed forests, communities, and civilizations rise, transform, and disappear. Yet it continues forward without hesitation, following its ancient path and preserving memories within its endless flow. The journey of Cahokia is shaped by human choices and the powerful influence of the land itself through changing seasons and nature. The climate, rivers, and forests influence every part of life in this ancient city. Slowly, the valley prepares for another chapter, where people must continue finding harmony with the world around them, while the Mississippi keeps flowing through time. You now follow the quiet pathways extending beyond Cahokia and discover that this remarkable city connects to a much wider world beyond the valley itself. Rivers, forests, and open landscapes create natural routes where people travel, exchange goods, and share ideas. Cahokia becomes a meeting place where distant communities interact through peaceful movement, cooperation, and connections that stretch across the surrounding regions. The Mississippi River acts like a great natural road flowing through the continent, linking distant landscapes together. Canoes travel along its currents, carrying materials, stories, and traditions from places far beyond Cahokia. People move between regions, bringing objects that reflect different environments and cultures. Each journey adds another connection to the invisible network linking Cahokia with distant communities across the ancient world. The exchange networks surrounding Cahokia extend across thousands of kilometers, connecting the city with distant regions and many different communities. Archaeologists have discovered materials that could only have arrived through long journeys, trade, and communication. These findings reveal that Cahokia was not an isolated settlement beside the river, but a major center within a much wider world where people, resources, ideas, and traditions moved across generations. Among the most fascinating discoveries are shells that originated near the Gulf of Mexico and distant coastal waters. These shells traveled hundreds of miles before reaching the inland valley of Cahokia. Passing through many hands and communities, they became more than decorative objects. They represented beauty, ceremony, exchange, and meaningful connections between peoples separated by enormous distances across the continent. You imagine the journey of these shells as they quietly move across forests, rivers, and open landscapes. Someone gathers them near the ocean, another traveler carries them inland, and eventually they arrive beside the Mississippi River. The shells become symbols of movement and connection, reminding us of the conversations, relationships, and shared experiences created along their long path through many different communities. Other valuable materials arrive from the north, including copper from regions near the Great Lakes. This metal travels through forests, waterways, and settlements before reaching the hands of Cahokia's skilled craftspeople. They carefully transform the copper into ornaments and meaningful objects, demonstrating creativity, technical knowledge, and an understanding of how natural materials can become powerful symbols within their culture, and community stones and minerals from the Appalachian region also appear among archaeological discoveries at Cahokia, revealing another connection across great distances. These materials cross challenging landscapes, carried by travelers who understand the value of exchange. Each piece preserves a small story about movement, cooperation, and relationships, formed between communities that may have never met directly but remained connected through trade and shared human curiosity. The trade networks surrounding Cahokia are not only about the movement of physical objects but also the exchange of ideas, traditions, and beliefs. People share knowledge about farming techniques, craftsmanship, ceremonies, and ways of organizing society. Cahokia becomes a meeting point where different influences combine, creating a unique culture shaped by countless conversations and relationships that connect communities across the vast continent. Archaeologists studying Cahokia have discovered evidence of these connections through tools, ornaments, pottery, and ceremonial objects found beneath the earth. These discoveries reveal that the city served as an important center for trade, communication, and ritual activities. The objects preserved over time become silent witnesses, showing a world filled with movement, interaction, creativity, and cultural exchange between many distant communities. The people who arrive in Cahokia bring far more than physical goods from distant regions. They carry stories, memories, and experiences from valleys, forests, and coastlines they have traveled through. Around evening fires, travelers may share tales of their journeys and describe unfamiliar places to others. These conversations help transform Cahokia into a gathering place where distant worlds feel connected and closer together. You can imagine the sounds of Cahokia during its busiest moments. When traders move through open spaces and crafts, people carefully shape valuable materials. Visitors exchange goods, stories, and knowledge beneath the wide sky while the city maintains its calm rhythm. Movement flows naturally like the nearby rivers. Even in a thriving marketplace, someone may still search for a lost basket. Showing ancient life had ordinary moments too. The ceremonial importance of Cahokia grows alongside its role as a powerful center of exchange and connection. Certain objects are placed carefully within special locations, suggesting they carry meanings beyond their practical purposes. The city becomes a place where people unite not only through trade, but also through shared traditions, spiritual practices, and beliefs that continue passing between generations across the Mississippi River Valley. Large gatherings bring people together from surrounding regions, creating powerful moments of connection between many communities. They participate in ceremonies, observe important events, exchange knowledge, and strengthen relationships that continue across generations. The open spaces of Cahokia provide room for thousands of people to gather, allowing them to share experiences beneath the changing sky while building memories that become part of the city's lasting identity. The river valley continues supporting the movement of people, resources, and ideas throughout the surrounding region. Waterways make travel easier, while the landscape provides food, materials, and shelter required for distant journeys. The environment itself helps create the conditions that allow Cahokia to become a major meeting place where different communities interact, exchange traditions, and influence one another across the ancient continent. As you look across the valley, you begin to understand that Cahokia's influence reaches far beyond its physical boundaries. Its connections extend in many directions through rivers, trails, and human relationships. The city becomes a place where distant worlds touch peacefully, creating exchanges of knowledge, culture, and traditions. These connections continue leaving echoes long after the original footsteps and voices have disappeared. Yet, over time, the sounds of travel and exchange begin to change throughout the valley. The pathways remain open and the rivers continue their endless movement, but fewer people arrive from distant lands. The activity that once filled Cahokia gradually becomes quieter, almost like a song slowly fading away after the final note disappears into the surrounding silence. The objects left behind still tell stories of ancient connections and remarkable journeys. Shells, copper, stones, and carefully crafted items remain beneath the soil, preserving memories of exchanges that crossed enormous distances. They remind us that Cahokia was never only a city built from earth and wood, but also a place shaped by movement, cooperation, creativity, and shared human experiences across many generations. As the evening settles over the valley, ancient roots remain quietly visible beneath the peaceful landscape, preserving memories of past journeys. The rivers continue their journey, and the paths still stretch toward distant places, but the footsteps upon them become fewer and softer, leaving behind only gentle echoes of the people who once traveled through this remarkable city. You now return to the quiet valley where Cahokia once moved with the energy of thousands of lives. Yet the change that comes is not a sudden ending, not a single moment when everything disappears. Instead, the city slowly becomes quieter over many decades. As people gradually leave, pathways become less crowded, and familiar spaces begin to welcome the return of nature. The morning light still touches the same fields and rivers that supported Cahokia for many generations. The forests continue growing, birds continue singing, and the Mississippi continues carrying water through the valley. The landscape does not appear damaged or empty. Instead, it enters another stage where human activity becomes quieter and less frequent. while nature slowly returns and continues its ancient rhythms across the land. Homes that once held families begin receiving fewer visitors as time passes. Fires that once warmed gatherings become less common, and some structures slowly return to the earth. Wooden walls weaken beneath rain, wind, and changing seasons, while plants begin growing where people once walked. The transition happens gradually, almost like a quiet conversation between civilization and nature across the changing landscape. The large plazas that once filled with movement begin changing in appearance over many years. Grass spreads across open areas, covering paths that once connected thousands of footsteps and daily activities. The transformation does not feel like destruction, but rather a natural process. The earth slowly reclaims spaces that humans shaped, gently placing a new layer over old memories preserved beneath the surface. Researchers continue studying why Cahokia became less populated, but no single answer explains everything completely. Archaeologists and scientists consider many possibilities, understanding that major changes usually result from several connected causes. The story of Cahokia remains complex, and the evidence suggests a gradual transformation rather than one sudden dramatic event. The city's decline reflects many influences working together across generations. One possible explanation involves pressure on available resources surrounding Cahokia. A large population requires food, materials, and careful management of the environment. Over time, the demands of a growing society may have created challenges for the community. The people of Cahokia likely needed to balance their needs with the limits of the land, adapting carefully as conditions changed around them. Climate changes may have also influenced the valley and the lives of people who depended on its resources. Studies suggest that periods of drought could have affected agriculture, crops, and water availability. At other times, flooding may have created additional difficulties for communities. These environmental changes did not happen suddenly, but they may have gradually influenced decisions about settlement, movement, resource use, and how communities organize themselves. Political and social changes provide another possible explanation for Cahokia's transformation over time. Large societies depend on relationships, leadership, traditions, and shared purposes among communities. If these connections gradually changed, people might have reorganized their lives in different ways. Many groups may have chosen new places to settle while carrying their knowledge, beliefs, and traditions forward into other regions beyond the original city. The movement of people away from Cahokia does not mean their culture completely vanished from history. Communities often change their form rather than simply disappear forever. Families and groups may have joined other settlements, traveled along rivers, or created new homes elsewhere. Their experiences continued through stories, traditions, practices, and memories carefully carried across many generations after leaving the city behind. As the years continue passing, Cahokia slowly becomes a quieter place within the valley. The wide spaces that once gathered thousands of people now hold the sounds of wind, birds, and distant animals. The absence of human activity does not create emptiness alone. Instead, it reveals another kind of beauty, where nature gradually begins writing its own chapter across the ancient landscape. You walk through the old plazas and notice how grass grows where thousands of people once stood together. Wild plants appear between forgotten pathways, and trees slowly return to places that were once carefully maintained. The valley does not completely erase the past beneath its surface. Instead, it gently covers the remains while preserving traces of human life beneath layers of soil and roots. The great mounds remain above the landscape, quietly watching over the changing world around them. They continue rising against the horizon, holding memories of the people who created them through patience and cooperation. Seasons pass across their surfaces, bringing rain, snow, sunlight, and wind, while the earth beneath continues protecting the story's traditions and experiences buried within these ancient structures. Archaeologists studying Cahokia understand that the decline of the city was not a simple mystery with one clear answer. The evidence points toward a combination of environmental pressures, changing relationships, and shifting populations over time. Like many great societies throughout history, Cahokia experiences transformation as part of a much larger human journey, shaped by adaptation, challenges, movement, and the continuous changes that influence civilizations. The valley itself remains generous, even as human activity gradually becomes smaller and quieter. Rivers still provide movement, forests continue offering shelter, and animals still follow ancient paths through the landscape. The same natural systems that once supported Cahokia continue their work. reminding you that nature often moves through cycles far longer than individual civilizations and their temporary moments of human influence. You imagine the final gatherings in the old city, not as moments of fear, but as quiet transitions toward another way of life. People pack their belongings, say farewell to familiar places, and follow pathways toward new homes. The city becomes less crowded one season at a time, until the sounds of daily activities become gentle memories carried by the wind. The remaining structures slowly blend into their surroundings as time passes. Wooden posts that once marked important spaces stand against the sky, weathered by years of changing conditions. They become simple reminders of human presence. Small pieces of a civilization that once shaped this valley through remarkable effort. Creativity, imagination, cooperation, and a deep connection with the surrounding natural world. As evening arrives, the open fields become calm beneath the fading light of day. The grass moves softly across the old plazas, and the mounds cast long shadows over the earth. The valley holds both what was created and what was left behind, allowing both stories to exist together peacefully without conflict, preserving memories of Cahokia for future generations. The final echoes of Cahokia remain quiet, gentle, and far from dramatic. They exist in the quiet movement of air passing through the remaining wooden posts, carrying soft whispers across abandoned spaces. The wind moves gently through the old city, flowing between forgotten places as if remembering every voice, every footprint, and every moment that once filled the valley with life, connection, and human presence. You now follow the quiet paths leading away from Cahokia, walking beside the rivers that once connected this remarkable city with distant lands. The people who leave do not simply disappear into the pages of history. Instead, they carry their memories, skills, traditions, and experiences with them as they travel toward new places. The story of Cahokia continues, not through buildings alone, but through the people who carry its spirit forward. The movement away from Cahokia happens gradually, following the natural routes created by the landscape itself. Families travel along rivers, across forests, and through familiar valleys where generations have lived before. They search for new opportunities while bringing pieces of their old home with them. Every journey becomes a bridge between the past and the future, connecting what was once known with what remains undiscovered. The rivers continue guiding these journeys, just as they guided trade, communication, and cultural exchange during Cahokia's greatest years. Canoes move through the waterways carrying people, tools, belongings, and stories. The Mississippi River and its connected streams become paths of transition, allowing communities to remain connected, even as they settle in different regions. Water continues doing what it has always done, carrying life forward. When people arrive in new areas, they do not leave Cahokia behind completely. They bring knowledge of farming, craftsmanship, ceremonies, and social traditions. Their experiences become part of other communities, blending with existing ways of life. Culture moves like water, flowing into new landscapes while still carrying traces of where it began. The influence of Cahokia survives through adaptation rather than simple continuation. Archaeologists and anthropologists studying the region have discovered evidence that Cahokia's influence continued long after the city became smaller. Artifacts, settlement patterns, pottery styles, and cultural practices suggest that ideas connected to Cahokia spread across surrounding regions. The city's story continued through people rather than through buildings alone. The earthworks became silent, but the human connections created, they remained alive. One important connection appears through pottery traditions. Certain designs, shapes, and techniques show similarities between different communities separated by distance. These objects are more than simple containers used in daily life. They become pieces of cultural memory shaped by skilled hands. Every mark, pattern, and surface carries information about the people who created them and the traditions they chose to protect. The creation of pottery also reveals patience and creativity. A person shaping clay is not only making an object, but also continuing a conversation with previous generations. The knowledge of how to prepare materials, form shapes, and decorate surfaces passes from one person to another. Through these actions, traditions survive quietly, even when the original city where they developed becomes distant. Ceremonial practices also continue changing and adapting after people leave Cahokia. Communities maintain important beliefs while adjusting them to new surroundings and new circumstances. Some traditions evolve over time, while others remain recognizable across many generations. These practices show how people preserve identity even when separated from the original places where their customs first developed. Agricultural knowledge travels with the people as well. Techniques for growing crops, managing fields, and understanding seasonal cycles continue influencing communities beyond Cahokia. The lessons learned in the fertile river valley become valuable knowledge carried into different landscapes. People adapt these practices to new environments, proving that knowledge can travel even when cities disappear. You imagine these travelers arriving in unfamiliar places, meeting new neighbors, and sharing stories beside evening fires. They explain where they came from and remember the great city that once stood beside the rivers. Their memories become bridges between different communities and different moments in time. Through storytelling, the past remains present, connecting generations that may never meet directly. The children born in these new communities grow up hearing stories about Cahokia. They may never see the enormous plazas or stand beside the great mounds, yet they learn about the place through voices passed down from older generations. The memory of the city becomes part of their understanding of who they are, where they came from, and how their ancestors moved across the land. Languages and expressions also carry pieces of the past. Words, stories, and ways of describing the natural world continue moving through families and communities. Even when a city disappears from the landscape, the ideas created there can survive through conversation shared across many years. Memory becomes a kind of invisible monument, existing wherever people continue telling the stories. Anthropologists studying the region recognize that cultural influence often lasts longer than physical structures. A city may become quiet, but its traditions can continue through descendants, neighboring groups, and communities connected by history. Cahokia's legacy is found not only in the mounds and earthworks left behind, but also in the living practices that remain among people. The paths beyond Cahokia are not simply roads of departure. They are routes of transformation, where people combine old knowledge with new experiences. Every settlement becomes a new chapter, shaped by memories of the past and conditions of the present. Life continues adapting, just as rivers continue changing their courses while still following ancient directions. You can picture families gathering in their new homes, creating familiar objects with slightly different materials and techniques. A person shaping pottery may remember methods learned from elders while adding personal touches inspired by the new environment. Tradition does not remain frozen like a stone monument. Instead, it grows like a living tree, changing while keeping its roots. The surrounding landscapes also influence how communities develop. Forests, rivers, and open fields provide different resources, requiring new approaches and new forms of cooperation. The people who once lived near Cahokia understand this balance well. They carry their knowledge forward while learning from every new place they enter and every new challenge they encounter. The story of Cahokia, therefore, does not end when the city becomes quieter. It spreads outward through movement, exchange, and memory. The influence of the city becomes less visible, but more deeply connected to everyday life. It travels quietly, like a familiar song remembered even when the original voice is gone. As centuries pass, the descendants of these communities continue creating their own histories. They build homes, raise families, maintain traditions, and develop new relationships with the natural world around them. The old city remains a distant memory, but its echoes continue appearing in objects, stories, beliefs, and practices carried through generations. The evening settles over the lands beyond the great city, and you imagine children sitting beneath the open sky, listening to stories about rivers, mounds, and ancestors. They hear about a place where people once gathered in great numbers and created something extraordinary. Those stories travel gently into the future, ensuring that Cahokia remains alive in memory long after the footsteps have faded. You now move forward through many centuries, arriving at a time when the great city of Cahokia has become almost invisible beneath the landscape. The large mounds remain, but grass, trees, and changing seasons slowly cover the traces of the civilization that once surrounded them. The earth quietly protects a story waiting to be discovered again. The valley appears peaceful and almost untouched to those who arrive long after Cahokia's busiest days have passed. Open fields stretch beneath the endless sky, while the great mounds rise gently from the earth like natural hills shaped by time. Without knowledge of their history, visitors might believe these formations were created only by nature rather than through the effort of thousands of human hands working together. Early European visitors entering this region did not always recognize the true scale and importance of what once existed there. The passing centuries gradually transformed the landscape, hiding many signs of the ancient city beneath nature's growth. Forests expanded, grasses covered forgotten pathways, and the voices of Cahokia's people slowly disappeared beneath layers of soil, roots, and silence, leaving only subtle traces of their remarkable civilization behind. Yet the land continued holding memories from the distant past. Beneath the surface, remains of homes, tools, ceremonial spaces, and carefully shaped earthworks remained preserved through time. The soil became a quiet archive, storing information that written records could not provide. Every layer contained another piece of a story, waiting patiently for someone to uncover, study, and understand the lives of those who came before. The rediscovery of Cahokia began slowly through careful observation, curiosity, and investigation. During the 19th century, researchers and explorers started examining the mysterious mounds more closely. At first, many people viewed them as natural hills shaped by time, but careful studies revealed patterns suggesting that these structures were created by human hands. The mounds represented the remains of a much larger achievement built by generations of people. Early surveys helped reveal that the landscape contained something extraordinary, hidden beneath the surface. Researchers mapped the locations of the mounds, measured their shapes, and studied how these structures related to one another. The more they explored the area, the clearer it became that Cahokia was not simply a collection of earth formations. Instead, it was once a carefully planned city with organized spaces, gathering areas and connections between different parts of the settlement. The work of archaeology required patience, dedication, and careful attention. Researchers could not uncover the entire story of Cahokia all at once. They needed to examine small pieces of evidence, compare discoveries, and slowly build a larger understanding of the ancient world. Like assembling a massive puzzle, every artifact, soil layer, and structure added another important piece to the picture of Cahokia's past. You imagine archaeologists walking through the open fields with careful attention, searching for signs hidden beneath ordinary-looking ground. A small fragment of pottery, a piece of stone, or a broken tool could reveal information about people who lived hundreds of years earlier. Even the smallest objects could become powerful voices from the past, helping researchers understand daily life and human experiences. By the 20th century, archaeological research expanded with improved methods and greater interest in protecting ancient places. Scholars continued studying Cahokia's remains, uncovering evidence that demonstrated the impressive size, organization, and complexity of the civilization. The forgotten city gradually returned to human awareness as researchers revealed more about the people who created it. As investigations continued, the true scale of Cahokia became easier to understand. The mounds, plazas, pathways, and settlement patterns revealed the outline of a major urban center that once shaped the region. What appeared to be quiet fields slowly transformed into evidence of one of the greatest cities of ancient North America. The soil itself became one of the most valuable sources of information about Cahokia's forgotten past. Each layer preserved traces from different periods, revealing changes in construction, daily activities, settlement patterns, and the surrounding environment. The earth became like a book written without ink, where every page was formed through time, rainfall, human effort, and natural processes. Beneath the surface, countless small details waited patiently to tell their stories. Unlike ordinary documents that can decay, disappear, or be destroyed, these layers of ground remain protected for centuries. They recorded the movement of people, the growth of communities, the creation of structures, and the gradual transformation of the landscape. Every discovery beneath the surface helped historians understand not only what Cahokia was, but also how people lived, worked, celebrated, and adapted within this remarkable ancient city. Archaeologists carefully studied the objects preserved within the soil. Pottery fragments, stone tools, ornaments, wooden remains, and traces of buildings provided clues about everyday routines and cultural traditions. These discoveries showed that Cahokia was not only a place of impressive monuments and ceremonial spaces, but also a home filled with ordinary moments, family experiences, personal stories, and generations of human connections. The work required a delicate balance between curiosity and respect for the past. Excavating too quickly could damage the very evidence researchers hoped to understand. Archaeologists moved slowly, carefully removing each layer and recording every discovery. Their patience allowed the ancient city to reveal itself gradually. protecting the memories preserved below while allowing new knowledge to emerge from the hidden landscape. You can picture the quiet atmosphere of an excavation site during the early morning hours. Researchers prepare their tools, examine the ground, and work with careful attention. There are no dramatic scenes, only focused movements as they uncover small pieces of history. Someone may gently brush away a thin layer of soil and suddenly reveal an object that has rested there for hundreds of years. The story of Cahokia reminds you that forgotten places are not always truly lost. Sometimes they are simply waiting beneath the surface, protected by time itself. The landscape may appear peaceful and ordinary, yet hidden within it are connections to people, dreams, achievements, and memories that existed long before modern cities transformed the world. As the sun moves across the valley, the mounds continue standing quietly above the fields. They no longer hold the voices of ancient gatherings, but they still carry the presence of those who built them. The earth remains a patient storyteller, sharing its memories only when the moment is right, and preserving the echoes of Cahokia for future generations. Near the end of the day, an archaeologist gently clears away the final traces of dust from a newly uncovered discovery. A small brush moves softly across the surface of the earth, slowly revealing hidden details that remain buried and protected for centuries beneath the quiet landscape. Each careful stroke allows another piece of Cahokia's memory to return, as the forgotten city slowly speaks again. You now arrive in the present, where the quiet valley of Cahokia is studied with tools that ancient people could never have imagined. The mounds remain beneath the open sky, but modern science allows researchers to see beyond what ordinary eyes can discover. The forgotten city slowly reveals itself through careful observation, patient listening, advanced technology. And a deeper understanding of the hidden landscape, archaeologists no longer depend only on digging to understand the past. Today, they use advanced technologies that allow them to explore the landscape while protecting the fragile remains below. These methods help reveal hidden structures, pathways, and patterns without disturbing every layer of earth that has preserved important evidence for centuries. Researchers can now study ancient spaces with greater care and accuracy. One of the most powerful tools used in modern research is LiDAR technology. This method sends pulses of light toward the ground and measures reflected signals to create detailed maps of the landscape. Even beneath vegetation, LiDAR can reveal subtle changes in elevation that suggest ancient human activity, including structures, pathways, and areas shaped by people who lived there many generations ago. Through LiDAR surveys, researchers have discovered features that were almost invisible through ordinary observation. Small variations in the ground reveal where buildings once stood, where pathways connected different areas, or where ancient structures shaped the city. The landscape becomes a hidden drawing slowly appearing beneath the surface, allowing scientists to understand the organization and design of Cahokia without disturbing the ancient remains. You imagine the excitement of researchers viewing these digital maps for the first time. A simple pattern on a screen may represent something created hundreds of years ago by human hands. It feels almost like receiving a message from the past, although the sender has been waiting patiently beneath the earth for centuries, protected by time and natural processes. Geophysical methods help researchers understand Cahokia without extensive excavation across the site. Instruments detect differences beneath the ground, revealing buried features such as walls, pits, pathways, and construction areas. These techniques allow archaeologists to study the city's layout while preserving much of the ancient landscape. The hidden structures slowly become visible through science, technology, and careful investigation. Another important source of information comes from the smallest details preserved by nature. Scientists analyze ancient pollen found within soil layers to understand which plants existed long ago. These tiny remains provide clues about forests, crops, climate conditions, and the relationship between people and the environment. Even microscopic evidence can reveal major changes across the history of the valley. The study of pollen shows that the landscape around Cahokia changed gradually through many generations. Researchers compare different periods to understand how forests, fields, wetlands, and human activity developed together. These small traces become valuable pieces of evidence, proving that history is often recorded in unexpected places. Nature quietly preserves information that helps explain the lives of ancient communities. Modern archaeology is not only about discovering objects from the past. It is about learning how to listen carefully to the silent messages preserved beneath the earth. Scientists approach ancient worlds with patience, knowing every discovery has its own moment. The landscape does not reveal everything quickly, and this slow process makes the journey of understanding Cahokia even more meaningful. The technology used at Cahokia changes the way people understand ancient cities and forgotten landscapes. Structures that once seemed completely lost beneath fields and grass can now appear through careful analysis. What remained invisible for centuries becomes recognizable again, not because the earth changes, but because researchers develop better methods to notice what has always existed beneath the surface of the valley. You can imagine the valley as a quiet painting filled with many hidden layers and forgotten stories. The surface reveals only one part of the past, while deeper layers contain memories from different periods. Modern tools allow researchers to explore hidden layers carefully, almost like turning the pages of an ancient book while protecting the delicate memories, evidence, and stories preserved inside the earth for centuries. The process requires patience rather than speed or quick conclusions. Archaeologists must compare evidence, examine results, test ideas, and remain open to unexpected discoveries. A single map or image rarely explains everything immediately. Instead, knowledge grows slowly through many small observations and careful studies that gradually create a clearer picture of Cahokia's people, structures, and ancient way of life. This approach reveals something important about studying history and understanding ancient civilizations. The past cannot be rushed or forced into simple explanations. Ancient communities followed different rhythms, and learning about them requires patience, respect, and careful observation. Scientists search for quiet signals preserved in the landscape, allowing the earth itself to reveal stories rather than creating answers before the evidence becomes clear. The discoveries made through modern research continue transforming how Cahokia is understood today. The city is no longer viewed only as a collection of impressive mounds rising across the valley. Instead, it becomes a complex environment filled with homes, gathering spaces, fields, pathways, and social connections that shaped daily life for generations of people who lived, worked, and created communities there. The more researchers discover, the more the valley seems alive with remembered activity from the distant past. Beneath the grass are traces of people walking, building structures, farming fields, and gathering together in communities. Modern technology cannot physically restore the ancient city, but it allows people to imagine the organization, movement, traditions, and experiences that once existed across this remarkable landscape many centuries ago. As evening approaches, the tools become silent and the landscape slowly returns to its peaceful natural state beneath the fading light. The rivers continue flowing nearby, birds settle among the trees, and the old mounds remain beneath the changing sky. Even with modern knowledge and advanced research, the valley maintains a sense of mystery that inspires continued exploration, careful study, and deeper understanding of the ancient world. The final light of day fades across the ancient landscape, gently touching the surface of Monk's Mound once more. The great earthwork stands peacefully above the surrounding fields, carrying memories of centuries of human effort, cooperation, and dedication. Slowly, the shadows grow longer across the valley, while the quiet landscape prepares to enter another peaceful night beneath the stars, holding stories that remain hidden within the earth and remembered through time. Darkness gently settles over Monk's Mound, covering the forgotten city beneath a peaceful blanket of stars. The wind moves softly through the grass, while the remaining outlines of Cahokia disappear into the darkness. Yet beneath the silence, the echoes of countless lives remain, waiting patiently through time for future generations to discover, explore, and understand this timeless journey of humanity, memory, and the ancient world. You now arrive at the final quiet moment of this journey, standing beside the ancient valley where Cahokia once rose and slowly became part of the earth again. The rivers continue moving, the forests continue growing, and the land remains beneath the same wide sky. Everything returns to the gentle rhythm that existed long before human footsteps appeared. The story of Cahokia is not only the story of a city, it is the story of the connection between water, soil, plants, animals, and people. Each element influences the others, creating a continuous cycle where nothing truly disappears. What changes form can still remain connected to the world that existed before. The Mississippi River flows beside the valley with the same steady movement it has carried for thousands of years. Its waters have witnessed ancient forests, changing climates, and generations of human communities. The river does not measure time in years or centuries. It moves through a much larger rhythm shaped by the deep history of the earth itself. When you compare the life of a civilization with the age of a river, human achievements appear both remarkable and small. Cahokia existed for only a few centuries, while the Mississippi shaped its path over millions of years. This difference does not reduce the importance of Cahokia. Instead, it places the city inside a much greater story of nature and time. The mounds remain as quiet reminders of what people can create together. They represent patience, cooperation, and imagination. Even after the city became silent, the earthworks continued standing through changing seasons. They became bridges between human creativity and the slower movements of geology, rivers, forests, and the natural world. You can imagine the countless hands that touched the soil, the families who crossed the plazas, and the generations who looked toward the same horizon. Their lives were brief compared with the landscape around them, yet their choices left traces that continue inspiring curiosity centuries later. The valley also reminds you that every civilization exists within a changing environment. Rivers shift, forests grow and disappear, and climates move through natural patterns. People adapt, create, and continue forward. Cahokia shows not only what humans build, but also how deeply humans remain connected to the world surrounding them. Modern research continues uncovering new details about this ancient place as scientists study the earth, artifacts, and hidden patterns beneath the surface. Each discovery adds another quiet sentence to the story, showing that history is not finished. As night approaches, the valley grows peaceful again, with ancient mounds beneath fading light and rivers reflecting the final colors. You look toward Monk's Mound beneath the night sky and see more than an ancient structure. You see the result of thousands of quiet decisions made by people who believed their work mattered. The mound stands as a reminder that even temporary lives can create something that continues beyond their own days. The grass moves softly across the open fields, covering places where ceremonies, conversations, and ordinary routines once unfolded. Nature does not erase these memories completely. Instead, it protects them in another form, allowing the earth to preserve what human voices can no longer describe. The rivers continue carrying their endless journey through the valley. They passed beside Cahokia before it existed, during its greatest moments, and after its people followed new paths. Their waters connect every chapter together, reminding you that the world is always moving while quietly preserving pieces of what came before. Far away, the sounds of insects begin filling the night air. Their small voices blend with the gentle movement of wind and the soft sounds of water along the riverbank. The valley becomes a place where silence is not emptiness, but a peaceful space where forgotten stories can still be felt. You imagine the stars looking down upon the same land that ancient people once observed. The sky has changed very little compared with human history. Constellations continue their slow movement above the earth, watching over forests, rivers, cities, and every generation that briefly becomes part of the landscape. The journey through Cahokia finally returns to where it began, with earth, water, and time moving together. The civilization that once filled the valley was only one moment within a much larger natural cycle. Yet that moment remains meaningful because it shows the creativity, connection, and dreams of those who lived there. Now the valley rests beneath the quiet night. The wind moves gently across the old mounds. Insects create distant sounds among the grasses, and the river's surface trembles beneath the stars. Everything continues without urgency, following a rhythm older than memory, softer than any human voice, and connected to the endless movement of nature. The final hours of darkness arrive slowly, and the ancient landscape becomes almost still. You no longer search for a lost city, because Cahokia was never truly gone. Its traces remain in the soil, rivers, stories, and memories carried through generations. The people became part of the earth, while history continues silently. You feel the calm of the ancient landscape as the world grows quieter. The river moves with a steady whisper. The wind passes through grass, and distant creatures continue their nighttime activities. The valley needs no explanation, because its peaceful existence already provides a gentle answer. Every grain of soil beneath your feet has a story from ancient floods, forests, and the people who shaped this valley. The great river continues its journey, carrying moon reflections while stars move above, reminding you that every moment belongs to something much larger. You remain for a little while longer, listening to the gentle sounds surrounding the valley. The wind moves through the grass, insects call from far away, and the water creates small ripples along the shore. The world feels peaceful, as though every piece of history has finally found a place to rest. The story of Cahokia becomes a reminder that nothing exists alone. Every civilization is connected to the land beneath it, the water beside it, and the sky above it. Human lives may pass quickly, but the connections they create can travel through generations like quiet currents beneath the surface. The last sounds of the night settle over the ancient city. The breeze moves softly across the empty fields. The insects remain distant and peaceful. The water reflects the stars, and the sky continues its endless journey above the sleeping valley. And as the final whispers of the night fade away, only the natural world remains, continuing its timeless movement through darkness and light. The wind, the river, and the stars keep telling their own quiet story, long after every human voice has become still. The journey comes to an end, but the memory of Cahokia continues.